ahead of that hearing. Michael Kaine joined me a short time ago, where I began by asking him about that phone call from the new Qantas chief.
She made a phone call, reached out and said that she acknowledged that the workers had had a really hard time. Clearly, they'd had a hard time. They'd been illegally sacked, found by the High Court just last Wednesday unanimously, and said that she'd be willing to meet the workers at some point in the future to personally pass on that apology. And of course, that's important, Andrew, but words are words, actions are actions. And what we need to see from Qantas is a real intention to turn over a new leaf. We've got a board that's in place that oversaw the illegal sacking decision, but not only that, oversaw and championed on the Alan Joyce approach of splintering the workforce into 38 different entities over 15 years, and that has left us with devastatingly low service standards and airfares through the roof. It's a board that needs to be held to account. Richard Goyder should go and the board should spill.
Sure, we'll get to that in a minute. What's happened to those workers? Were they primarily baggage handlers? Can they get their jobs back now, or will they receive compo? Where do they go from here?
Well, this is the travesty of the situation. These workers were axed and outsourced in 2020. The federal court, the first judge in 2021, found that that was an illegal sacking. It was done under the cover of COVID for the purpose of preventing those workers bargaining for better terms and conditions in the future. Qantas appealed that decision. It went to the full federal court. 3 judges then reinforced unanimously that these sackings were illegal. Qantas appealed that, went to the High Court. 7 judges unanimously said that these sackings were illegal. That's now 11 judges at the federal level that have backed this in. Unfortunately, the court has said that the egg is broken and it's too big to unscramble. That is, Andrew, the magnitude of the sackings, 1,700 of them, means that it's too hard for the court, it says, to order these people back to work. So we're down to a compensation phase, and tomorrow the directions hearing about how that compensation phase will occur is before Justice Lee in the federal court.
And how much money do you expect them to receive each? How much are you hoping for?
Well, it'll be up to the court, but let's put it in perspective. These are workers, some of them that have been, well, many of them that have been working for many years for Qantas, some of them over 30 years. They'd been sacked illegally. They've had 3 years where they haven't been able to get work, many of them. Marriage breakdowns, property that had to be sold to be able to get through this trauma. And of course, they had an expectation, a rightful expectation, that they would continue in this work had they not been illegally sacked. So all of that adds up to us making sure that our lawyers are putting forward a very robust case for compensation for these workers. It certainly could run into the hundreds of millions, and Qantas has said that it's made hundreds of millions in savings from the illegal outsourcing, so that seems to be just about justice to us.
And you won the chair of Qantas, Richard Goyder, out in the board spill. What chance do you think there is of that happening? Because he's indicated he's going nowhere.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a matter of chances. I think it's a matter of accountability. Boards exist to ensure that the culture in the company that they oversee is a good one. On that measure, the board fails. Boards exist to make sure they hold their management team to account, to make sure that they deal with the company appropriately and don't put it in risk. On that count, failure as well. 1,700 workers found by the High Court to have been illegally sacked is not managing risk. ACCC is now prosecuting Qantas for selling flights that had already been cancelled. Fail. There's a Fair Work, there's a prosecution of a regulator in New South Wales, a criminal prosecution for sacking a workplace health and safety delegate for raising concerns in COVID. Fail. This is a board that's consistently failed. It's overseen a company that's reputation is through the floor. Service standards are also through the floor. Airfares are through the roof. And it has failed on all levels. It has to go if we're going to get a fresh start, Andrew, at Qantas.
What are your thoughts now on Alan Joyce?
Well, I don't have any thoughts on Alan Joyce, to be perfectly honest. I think that what is important is that the Joyce mythology, his fantasy that he would be remembered as somehow a Messiah CEO, has forever been put to rest. This is a CEO that came to the position at Qantas after workers had built up good terms and secure terms and conditions for years. He split the workforce into 38 separate entities, and he pushed wages and conditions so low that no one, when we're just trying to build back after COVID, no one wants these jobs. The service standards are very poor. And of course, we've got airfares through the roof. All the time, Alan Joyce gloating that he's made $2.54 billion worth of profit this year. You know, that's not a CEO that needs to be rejoiced. It's a CEO whose legacy has now been exposed in an appropriate way to the Australian community. So Alan Joyce is gone. His legacy is trashed with him. And now our job is to rebuild the spirit of Australia, because all Australians want Qantas to succeed into the future.
What are you expecting from this Senate inquiry on the decision to block Qatar flights?
Well, the Senate inquiry is important because the Senate inquiry is going to have the opportunity to question the board about its involvement in illegal sackings. Andrew, this is not some slap on the wrist here. The danger for the community is that we somehow have a High Court decision last Wednesday and move on as if it's an administrative glitch. This is the highest court in the land. Every justice in the highest court of the land saying that this company acted illegally, and the board that oversaw the management team that acted illegally is still in place. So in terms of what we hope comes out of the Senate committee hearing, we hope that an appropriate set of questions and accountability comes for these terrible events that left workers in trouble, but also left the flying community devastated, as we've seen over the last 2 years.
TWU National Secretary Michael Kaine, thanks so much for your time.